Welcome to our Gold Derby Film Documentary 2 panel. I'm Denton Davidson, Senior Editor for Gold Derby, here with Questlove, Director of Summer of Soul, Jessica Kingdon, Director of Ascension, Jonas Poer Rasmussen, Director of Flee, Matthew Heineman, Director of The First Wave, Nanfu Wang, Director of In the Same Breath, and Julie Goldman, Producer of The Velvet Underground. Thank you all so much for joining us. First of all, it's great to have all of you here together to discuss your films that have been celebrated throughout the year. Each of them has been shortlisted to be eligible for Academy Award nominations this year, so congrats on that. Only 15 made the list out of so many, and 6 of you are sitting right here, so I'm thrilled to be with you. My first question is, how did you each find out you made the cut for this shortlist, and what is that feeling like to be recognized in this way and now sitting here with your peers? I'll start with Questlove.
You know, I'm pretty much up around 5 or 6 in the morning. Since the pandemic, I've been meditating. And the thing is that if I meditate with the and I forget to put my airplane mode on, oftentimes calls can come and interrupt whatever YouTube channel I have on. So I was reminded that morning that today was the big day, and then I airported it. But I didn't want to be the person that like checks every 12 seconds to see what happens. So, you know, I had a routine day. I went to my job at Late Night with Jimmy Fallon, and we start taping around, you know, in the afternoon. So when I got off stage and saw enough exclamation points and a bunch of text, then I realized that, okay, we made the shortlist. So that was good news to hear.
And Jessica, how about you?
Someone texted my producer, Nate Truesdell, and said something about the shortlist before it was announced, because maybe there was a leak or something online. And so there was this kind of weird in-between period where like someone was saying something, but it wasn't official yet. So we were kind of like trying not to be too excited. And then, you know, finally the news was actually announced. So when that happened, it was a relief, because it would have been quite a letdown if someone was like, yeah, you made it, and then we did it. So yeah, and it's like Questlove was saying, it's really cool to be here with the same group of people and see everyone. And you know, now I've finally watched everyone's films, which are incredible. So it's just great to be in such company with these people. And I also, the thing that happened when we got the short list is, even if we don't get nominated, I feel like making it this far is incredible, and it's not something that can be taken away now. So just, you know, making it here is great for me.
And Jonas, how about you?
I was at my mom's place having dinner, and there was a bit of time zone confusion. So we kind of had gathered the team on Zoom and kind of waiting for the announcement. But then, you know, because we're 9 hours apart, something went wrong. So we were kind of waiting and nothing happened. So people kind of left again. And then all of a sudden, you know, I got a call from my producer saying, okay, now it's happening. And I kind of went, you know, on the local news. And because Denmark is such a small country, so it's quite a big deal when a Danish film gets shortlisted. So it was, you know, in breaking yellow on all the newspapers and stuff. So it was quite the experience, and I started to get texts from all my friends. So it's really amazing, and I could just echo what's being said about it's just an honor to be in this company, and it's so good to see you all again. So yeah, it's been a ride.
Matthew, what was your experience?
I think I got that similar leak about half an hour before, and so I was hoping it was not fake news and that it was real news. Yeah, it was, you know, it's just a huge honor to be amongst this incredible group of films. I think for my film, you know, it's a difficult watch, and it's hard to get people to sort of engage with the film about COVID, and so it just, I think, gives it more visibility and you know, generates conversation, which is, I think, why we make these films. And so yeah, just really honored to be amongst this group and to still be talking about the film.
And then Fu.
I was in the middle of editing a new project, the final stretch of editing, and I got a call from Julie, who also produced In the Same Breath. And she was like, have you heard the news? And I was like, what news? And she said in a such, I think, calm, and I said, okay, are you gonna tell me the bad news? I was like, what news? And she told me, oh, like In the Same Breath made it. And I was like, that's great. And then I wanted to know what the list, and it was a great list. So we hung up the phone and I walked into next door, my husband's room, editing room. He and I co-edited In the Same Breath, and he's also editing the new project that we're working on together. So I walked in and I said, hey, In the Same Breath just made the shortlist. And he was still editing with headphones on, and he turned around, oh, okay. And then he went back to his editing. And I felt embarrassed. I was like, okay, it is not a big deal, because we were in the midst of figuring out, struggling of the edit. So I came back and went back to editing.
Motivation to keep
And
working.
he was more enthusiastic, right, after that.
After that, like half an hour later, he walked in and he's like, I'm so sorry, I apologize. I didn't react more enthusiastically now.
And Julie, how about you?
Well, I mean, just to echo what everybody said, also, I mean, some of us are also in the documentary branch, and there was a lot of pride seeing that list, because it was a great list this year, and so many wonderful films. And yeah, it was a just thrill and an honor to be among them. But I can solve the mystery also, which is that the Academy put up on its press release site without announcing the list. And one of the publicists, who probably represent a lot of us, was like clicking on that all the time ahead of time, and it found out that way, and it was before the announcement. So that's how we found out.
And another thing I wanted to ask is, you all have your own unique path into documentary filmmaking. And I'm curious to learn, what was that push for you that got you into wanting to make documentary film? And also, what kind of subject does it take to grab onto you that makes you want to put in the time and effort? Because it's a lot of work to say, I'm going to put everything into this and get this film done. We'll start with Questlove again.
In my very specific situation, I'm dealing, for the very beginning, yes, it was like, hey, like Questlove's going to work on a film. This is my directorial debut. But once I actually got the footage in my possession, all of that went out the window. And, I still don't feel like this is more or less my platform, more than I feel like this is my chance to restore history. Because, especially where I live in the United States, Black erasure is kind of very commonplace. Like, it's as commonplace in American as apple pie. And so the weight of I have the one chance to go at bat, and I better grand slam this out the park and restore our history, our lost scrolls. That was heavy on my mind. And yes, it was also on my mind that I was a first-time driver doing this. But for me, it was way more important to see this as a chance to restore erased history, because I didn't know about this. Like half the world didn't know about what happened in Harlem in 1969. And the fact that it mirrored exactly what we were living in 2020 made it even more urgent. So that's the sort of the mind state that I was in.
And Jessica, how about you?
For me, it was really a slow kind of climb up until, not to make a pun, because the film's called Ascension, I just realized. Anyway, it was, slow march up until getting to this point of making this film. For a long time, I've been wanting to make films, and I still feel pretty genre agnostic, whether it's narrative or experimental or documentary. I was kind of interested in all of it. But as I became more exposed to different types of documentaries and saw more and more unconventional documentaries, I started to believe that maybe there was a place for me in this industry, and that and that this is something that I could actually pull off in a way that I wanted to. So in terms of being able to commit to a project, you're right, it is such a huge commitment. And the way I did it was tricking myself into it. It just would have felt way too high stakes and high pressure if I had gone in thinking I was going to make some, a film that took 4 years and on such a large scale. So it was kind of baby steps, and along the way I kept telling myself I'm making a B movie. That's what my friend told me. She was like, just finish it and tell yourself you're making a B movie, meaning like something that's not that good. And that's kind of what got me through being able to finish it and make it.
And Jonas.
The first film I made was about my grandfather, who was a quite well-known poet here in Denmark. And when he passed, the whole family kind of gathered in his house, and we were in the house kind of looking for the will and sorting out things, all kind of practical things. And in the search, I found these old VHS tapes with like all short films that he had done back in the 50s and 60s. And instead of still searching for the will, I kind of sat down and looked at these films. And this world just opened. I thought I knew my grandfather, but I realized I didn't. And I think that's really a key moment for me in kind of my curiosity about these hidden stories and trying to open up these stories to myself and to the world, and really, trying to understand why people act like they do. And I think that really started at that moment, sitting in that chair and understanding that I didn't really know my grandfather. And there was this whole life that I knew nothing about. To me, he was always, just the grandfather who had a bunch of sodas in the fridge that I could always drink, and who gave me a bit of money when I met him. So that was really the moment. And I really enjoyed the process of making the film. I know it's long and tough, but just the dialogue you have with your creative partners, I really enjoy that process.
And Matthew.
Yeah, I sort of stumbled into it. I studied history in college. I got rejected from Teach for America. Most people then asked, they didn't know you could get rejected from Teach for America, but I was one of the lucky ones, and decided to go on this sort of journey across the US to try to understand what our generation's about. And I bought a video camera. I raised just a little bit of money, and that was like my first film. Is my film school. I taught myself as I went, and through that process fell in love with filmmaking. And it's just such a privilege to do what we do. And I think sort of looking back at all the films that I made, I guess what unites them all is sort of taking these big amorphous subjects that we're sort of inundated with or plastered across headlines, and to try to put a human face to it. And that's certainly what I tried to do with The First Wave.
And Fu.
So I grew up in China. I came to the US in 2011 when I was 26 to attend graduate school. At the time, I wanted to become a journalist, writing about China, going back to report. And I quickly realized after first week of grad school that it was very theoretical, that we study quantitative audience research, and it wasn't something that I wanted to do. So I asked several professors if I could sit in the more practical freshman and the sophomore class in video production. And one of the classes that I took was documentary. So we watched some of the documentaries, and it was the first time in my life that I ever watched documentaries. It really had a huge impact in me, because in China, now the industry has grown a lot, but when I grew up and before I left, it wasn't really available for people to watch. So I was very surprised that this medium exists and wanted to do documentary. And the next step is to figure out, how do I shoot, how do I edit? There are two moments that I would never, ever forget. One is I went to the school's equipment room to check out a camera, and it was the first time I hold a DSLR. I get back to my room, and I pulled, I couldn't figure out how to get the lens off to switch. I didn't know there was a lens release button. And it was like, I was panicking for an hour thinking I'm gonna break this. And the other moment I was in a video production class 101, the instructor asked, if everybody can watch a video and raise their hand when they see a cut. So every 5 seconds, the entire class like went up hands, and I was the one. I was like, what are they seeing that I'm not seeing? What is a cut? And I was extremely embarrassed. I wanted to fake, but like wanted to see everybody's raising the hands, and it did. But anyway, from then on, my dream project at the time is to make a film about healthcare in China, because my father died when I was 12, and that was what I think shaped my personality and life trajectory. And for one or another reason, I never made that film until when COVID happened, and then I made it in the same breath. So part of it, when I started this project, I felt it was not exactly the film that I had dreamed to make, but it is about the healthcare system and the government's corruption. So part of it, when I was making it, I felt it was dedicated to him and the part that I wanted. And so I was able to make a scene about my dad in the film, and I felt extremely proud and felt like I achieved when I first started to become a filmmaker.
And Julie.
I've been producing documentaries for over 20 years, so it's kind of hard to remember. I would say, you know, I produced a lot of different things, and at some point I was like, I don't want to be kind of beholden to actor schedules for fiction. I don't want to be producing Gigapet commercials at all. Things like that kind of made these decisions. And what I kept coming back to was documentary, which I really did love. And I think in terms of, you know, kind of the films that, you know, how you make decisions, there's alchemy involved in it, but there's also like wanting to work with really incredibly talented storytellers. That's, you know, we've made a couple of films with Nanfu, and when we come back to filmmakers often who we work with a lot, like Roger Ross Williams, or, you know, there's, you know, many filmmakers that we kind of are like continuing these relationships with. And then it's the story, it's the access. It's generally like if your heart beats faster. So for instance, when we got a call from David Blackman at Polygram saying Todd Haynes wants to make his first documentary and it's going to be about the Velvet Underground, it was like, you know, my heart kind of went out of my body at that moment, because it was like putting so many things together that I could just see would be incredible. And Todd kind of having made these films that touch on music that I had loved, you know, like I'm Not There and Karen Carpenter film, you know, I just knew this was an incredible artist. And also that this story it was like that kind of thing of like, who should be able to make this story? He should, you know, who should be allowed almost to tell this incredible story. And what, you know, it's like on both sides when it fits so beautifully. And knowing that it was right away when we spoke with him that it's going to be about the avant-garde cinema of the time, and that it's going to be about New York in that moment. All of those things came together to feel like we must make this film. So my producing partners, Chris Clements and Carolyn Hepburn, and I were, you know, beside ourselves, I would say.
Well, I just want to say congratulations to each of you once again. Everyone out there watching this panel, if you haven't seen them yet, add all 6 of these documentaries to your list. They're among the best films of the year, documentary or otherwise. And best of luck to each of you at the Oscars and throughout award season. Thank you each for joining us for this Gold Derby film documentary panel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.